All right, so ready to dive into a part of the tech world that's, well, maybe not as glamorous as the latest gadget, but super important.
Definitely.
Software testing. It's kind of the unsung hero behind every app and website we use. And from the looks of it, you're interested in becoming one of those heroes. Am I right?
You are. I've been looking into this ISTQB certification, the CTFL, and honestly, it seems like a pretty big deal in the software testing world.
Oh, it is. It's like the gold standard, globally recognized and everything. ISTQB stands for International Software Testing Qualifications Board, by the way, in case you were wondering.
Right, of course. What I find interesting, though, is that it seems like it's not just for people who already have a ton of experience. Like, I'm not a developer, but...
Yes. But you can still benefit from understanding the fundamentals, right? Because at its core, the CTFL is really about those foundational concepts of software testing.
Totally. I mean, whether you're a developer, a project manager, or, just starting out, knowing the basics of testing is super valuable.
Absolutely. So let's break down those basics a bit. What exactly does the CTFL cover? What will you actually learn?
Well, there are 6 main knowledge areas. They cover everything from the fundamentals of testing itself to how testing fits into the entire software development lifecycle, static testing, test design techniques, test management, even tool support for testing.
Wow. Okay, 6 areas. That's pretty comprehensive. I have to admit, just hearing those listed out, it sounds a little intimidating. Like, where do you even begin?
Well, I think for someone starting out, understanding how testing fits into the entire software development lifecycle is key.
That makes sense. So you're not just tacking on testing at the very end, hoping for the best.
Exactly, because it's not just about finding bugs, it's about preventing them in the first place.
Right. Like, you wouldn't bake a cake and then only at the very end check if you added enough sugar, would you?
Definitely not.
Exactly. You test along the way. Right. So let's talk about why someone would actually want to go through the effort of getting CTFL certified. I mean, aside from gaining valuable knowledge, how does it really impact your career?
Well, for one, it shows employers that you understand global testing standards. And that can be huge, especially in a global job market.
Absolutely. It's like a stamp of approval that says, hey, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. So it can open doors to more opportunities, potentially higher salaries. Plus, it just gives you more credibility in the field.
Okay, you've sold me on the why. But let's talk about the actual exam, because I'm not going to lie, that word can be a bit intimidating.
I get it, but the good news is the CTFL exam is designed to be fair and really focused on practical knowledge. It's not about tricking you or making you memorize a bunch of obscure terms.
Okay, that's reassuring. So what's the format like?
It's a 60-minute exam with 40 multiple-choice questions.
A multiple choice. Okay, that feels a bit more manageable.
And you need to score 65% to pass.
65%? All right, I can work with that. But you mentioned different cognitive levels to the questions. What does that even mean?
Good question. They basically categorize the questions based on how deeply you need to think about them. There's remember, understand, and apply.
Okay. Examples would probably help me wrap my head around that a little better.
Absolutely. So a remember question might be something like, what is the definition of a failure in software testing?
Okay, so pretty straightforward, like recalling a definition.
Exactly. And the ISTQB syllabus actually defines failure as the non-delivery of service to an end user or any other stakeholder. So it's about remembering those key terms and concepts.
Got it. That makes sense. What about understand? How is that different?
So with understand, you're taking it a step further, right? Like instead of just knowing the definition, you have to actually grasp the concept.
Okay, so give me an example. Put my understanding to the test.
All right, how about this? Why is it important to do test analysis and design early in the software development lifecycle?
So not just what it is, but why it matters.
Exactly. And the answer, in a nutshell, is to catch those pesky bugs early on when they're way cheaper and easier to fix.
Makes sense, like patching up a small crack in a bridge during construction versus, after it's already open and cars are driving on it.
Exactly. You want to avoid those major meltdowns later on.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've covered remember and understand. What about those apply questions? Those sound a bit more intense.
A little bit, yeah. This is where you have to take what you've learned and actually use it in a given scenario. Think of it like being given a puzzle to solve, but instead of puzzle pieces, you've got your testing knowledge.
Oh, okay. So like a real-world application.
Exactly. For example, you might be given a state transition diagram.
Oh, what now? Sorry, that sounds a bit like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It kind of does, right? But basically, it's just a way to visualize how a system moves from one state to another based on different actions or inputs. And your job is to design test cases that cover all those possible transitions, making sure everything works as it should.
Ah, okay. So like testing all the different ways someone could use a feature on a website, making sure it doesn't crash or anything.
Exactly. Like, if you're testing an online shopping cart, you wouldn't just check if you can add one item, right? You'd want to see what happens if you add 100 items, or if you remove an item while you're still browsing.
Oh, I see. So thinking about all those edge cases, all those things a user might do that could potentially cause problems.
Exactly. You have to anticipate those unexpected interactions.
Wow, there's a lot more to this whole software testing thing than I realized. Speaking of which, we've been talking about the CTFL exam and all, but you've also been checking out Grand Slam I.T, right? They offer training for the CTFL, and they seem to have caught your eye for a reason.
They have. I mean, there are tons of online courses out there, but what struck me about Grand Slam I.T is that they seem to have a much more personal touch.
Oh, tell me more about that. What makes them different?
Well, for one, they offer live online sessions with expert instructors, so it's not just you and a bunch of pre-recorded videos.
Oh, that's nice. It actually feels like you're part of a class, getting that real-time interaction and feedback.
Exactly. And they don't just stop at the exam prep. They actually help you with job opportunities afterwards, too.
Wow, that's a pretty sweet deal, actually helping you land that dream job after you get certified.
Right. It shows that they're really invested in their students' success, not just, getting them through the exam and that's it.
Totally. But going back to their training for a second, one thing I found really interesting was their use of AI personas.
AI personas. Now, that's a new one on me. How does that work?
So imagine you start the course and you're greeted by Sara, this experienced software testing mentor who has a PhD in computer science and tons of real-world experience. She's there to guide you through the material, share insights, and answer any questions you might have.
It's like having a virtual mentor by your side, someone who's been there, done that, and can relate to what you're going through.
Exactly. And then there's Sam, who's kind of the eager newcomer. He's just starting his software testing journey, so he asks all those questions that someone brand new to this world might have.
Oh, I like that. It makes you feel less alone, like it's okay to not know everything.
Right. And the way they've integrated these personas into the training is really clever.
Yeah.
Like, take boundary value analysis, for example. It's a testing technique that can seem a bit abstract at first.
Yeah, it's all about testing those extreme edges, right? Like what happens if you enter a super long password or leave a field completely blank.
Exactly. And instead of just explaining it in this dry, theoretical way, Sara, our AI mentor, brings it to life by using the Grand Slam I.T website's login form as an example.
Oh, that's smart. Using a real-world scenario like that makes it so much easier to understand.
Right. And it sticks with you better, too, because you're not just memorizing a definition. You're actually seeing how it works in practice.
It's a great way to bridge that gap between theory and, the actual day-to-day of being a software tester.
Totally. And that's what I appreciate about Grand Slam I.T. They don't just focus on getting you to pass the exam. They want you to actually be able to use that knowledge in the real world.
Which is the whole point, right?
Exactly. So, speaking of which, their course structure seems pretty well thought out, too, breaking down the material into digestible chunks. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so they've broken it down into 7 two-hour sessions, which feels manageable.
That's a good length, not too overwhelming.
Right, and each session is this mix of, live presentations from the instructors, Q&A time, even quizzes sprinkled throughout.
Oh, so you're constantly putting what you're learning into practice.
Exactly. It keeps you engaged, make sure you're really absorbing the information.
And probably helps with confidence building too, right? Knowing you're not just passively listening, you're actively participating. Oh yeah, for sure. And then to top it off, they have these mini mock exams every 2 sessions.
Nice, like little progress checks along the way.
Exactly. So by the time you get to the final session, where they do a full-blown exam simulation.
We're basically a pro at taking the exam itself, even before you step into the real thing.
Right. And I think what's cool about that approach is it's not just about prepping you for the exam, it's about building those good habits early on.
Oh, totally. Like time management, staying calm under pressure. Those are valuable skills no matter what you do.
Exactly. And speaking of real-world applications, I thought it was really interesting how Grand Slam I.T wasn't afraid to share some of those oops moments, those testing fails that happen sometimes.
Yeah, like Sara's story about that software launch that, well, let's just say didn't go so smoothly because they skimped on the performance testing.
Oh, man. Yeah, that was a good reminder that this stuff has real consequences.
Big time. It's not just about theoretical concepts. It's about making sure that software actually works for people in the real world.
Exactly. And that brings me to something I've been thinking about a lot lately, actually. Like, we've talked a ton about the technical stuff, but what about the human side of software testing?
Oh, I know what you mean. It's not just about the tools and the techniques. It's about working with people, communicating effectively, being a team player.
Absolutely. Like,
Right.
how do you explain a complex technical issue to a developer who might not be as familiar with testing? Or how do you advocate for quality when deadlines are tight and everyone's feeling the pressure?
It's like you're a translator almost, bridging that gap between the tech side and the user experience.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not always easy, especially in a fast-paced environment.
No, it definitely takes some serious people skills.
It does. But when it works, when you get that open communication and everyone's on the same page,
Yeah,
that's when the magic happens.
totally. And that's what makes software testing so interesting to me. It's this blend of technical expertise and those essential soft skills. You need both to be successful.
I completely agree. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of software testing, I think the big takeaway here is that it's a field with so much potential, whether you're just starting out or looking to level up your tech skills.
We've uncovered a lot today, from the ins and outs of the ISTQB CTFL certification to Grand Slam I.T's really innovative approach to training. And of course, we can't forget those essential human skills that are so important in any tech-related field.
Absolutely. So if anything we've talked about today has piqued your interest, I encourage you to keep exploring.
There are tons of resources out there, amazing communities online, and who knows, maybe we'll see you at a future ISTQB conference sharing your own software testing stories.
I love it. Until then, happy testing, everyone.